Welcome to Echoes of Healing Songs, a podcast exploring Indigenous and traditional healing knowledge and living wisdom which sustains communities across generations. The series was created as an invitation not to extract knowledge, but to listen differently in a time where global health and academic institutions are re-examining their foundations. We turn toward Indigenous knowledge to remind us that knowledge is relational, embodied, and inseparable from land, spirit, and community. Each episode features conversations with Indigenous knowledge keepers, traditional practices, researchers, and community leaders. Together, we explore diverse understandings of health, well-being, balance, and healing, and consider how these ways of knowing challenge and enrich dominant medical paradigms. We approach these dialogues with respect and humility. Some knowledge shared here is offered generously. Some knowledge is sacred and held within community. We honor that principle and that not all wisdom is meant to be shared for public circulation. And we recognize the sovereignty of Indigenous and ancestral knowledge systems. As listeners, we are invited to slow down, to listen with complexity, and to reflect on our own position, how we relate to power and land and one another. Thank you for joining us in this space today as we listen, learn, and relate to our guest today, Jenny Sawanohk. Welcome, Jenny. You are an Indigenous mental health practitioner, community practitioner from the Moose Cree Nation. Instead of introducing you, I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself and tell us what you'd like us to know about you. Welcome.
Oh gosh, thank you. Just hearing you introduce what this podcast is all about feels emotional to me because it's just so needed, and it just feels so wonderful to have you do this work and acknowledge the importance of it. So I'm Jenny Sawanohk, Sutherland. Sawanohk is my Cree way of saying Sutherland. I'm from Moose Cree First Nation, as you mentioned, the Ilmishkegowuk community of the James Bay Lowlands in Northern Ontario. My traditional name is Miko Asenikinabikashkwe, Redstone Snake Woman. So that's what I called my private practice as an Indigenous healer psychotherapist. I also do consultation work, a lot of speaking work and training work for truth and reconciliation, and for people to understand what colonialism has done to us all. I particularly started this work because I work with vulnerable Indigenous populations, like youth in care, residential school survivors, people experiencing being unhoused, and fighting addiction, trying to still survive from the legacy of genocide, from what we experienced here with colonialism. And as I dove into that work, I realized all of us are living under the colonial wound that has been this, a disconnect from our kinship to the land and each other. So all of my work is under the umbrella of speaking to that truth and showing people the pathway forward into healing. I'm also a mother of 3 boys, and it's extremely important for me to ensure that we are living in a way here that thinks about the future generations, the 7 generations of youth ahead of us. So I live under that principle that we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And I really do a lot of work to just try and help people understand themselves and the unhealthy ways that they've been living and the systems that are failing us, and how to feel inspired to move forward in a better way that ensures our collective healing. So there's so many things to talk about. And I love to see where the direction of this conversation goes, because there's so much to cover with this really important topic.
Yeah, I guess to start with reminding our audience, or just alerting our audience to the fact that you have an honors Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology and a Master of Social Work. You have extensive experience in child welfare and children's mental health, and you're passionate about Indigenous social work. So you were trained in the regular system. What prompted you or drew you towards moving into a space between the two?
Oh gosh. Yeah, so I wanted to follow the path of healing work, and of course you think I need to get those degrees, right, in the Western institutions. So I
Mm-hmm.
chose psychology to understand human behavior. And I chose
Mm-hmm.
my Master of Social Work and Indigenous Studies because I wanted to specifically look at what happened to my people. And I quickly realized that there was nothing in the academics that could really explain that because no one had done that research, right? And the closest I
Mm-hmm.
could look at that was what happened to Holocaust survivors and research intergenerational trauma. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to go into community to really hear from the Indigenous people and their survivors about what their experiences were and what happened to them at those schools. So now we know
Mm-hmm.
a lot more about residential schools and what went on there through the survivors, especially with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. But I didn't know that
Mm-hmm.
back then. I just knew that we had been through our own Indian Holocaust, our own war, and that nobody knew about it, including
Mm-hmm.
my own people. There was a lot we didn't know because we've just been in the whirlwind of it and suffering from the aftermath of it. And still, as Cindy Blackstock said to me way back then, is our war hasn't ended. So then I became on this quest of being in community for that knowledge. But also, as I came out of, my MSW after I graduated, and I came into the position of psychotherapy and working with Indigenous youth in care, I realized that a lot of the people that were there to support us did not understand us. And how do we properly serve a people we don't understand, right? You can come from heart, but you can cause a lot of issues when you're in a different worldview and come from a different way of knowing how to be with people that live so differently than you do and want to, right? Because my
Mm-hmm.
people, we don't want to assimilate. We survived that war, and now we want to show people there's a different way of living here, as well as hold on to what are our inherent rights. And I think all of us need to step into what our inherent rights are as children of the land and a people that are to be in kinship and community with one another. So, as I started working in the field, I realized there was a lot of unlearning that we all needed to do. And as I created a position for myself, which has been kind of a wonderful part of the journey, because I spent a lot of years as a student working in child welfare and then children's mental health and even the advocacy office for a while. And as I came out, I took this position of psychotherapist, but quickly realized I could build for this company, which was a private residential service provider that specialized in treatment-based care. So I was working with the highest risk population of children in foster care and group care, and
Mm-hmm.
said, well, if you're treatment-based, how about and you have a lot of Indigenous youth in your care, where are our traditional healers and our elders and the Indigenous people that really know how to care for these kids? And so I started reaching out to traditional healers. And as I started bringing those ceremonies back for these youth, I was also now a new mom and wanted to ensure that my children had the ceremonies, the rites of passage that are so
Mm-hmm.
important, especially when you go through the war we've been through, which it was all about identity, like trying to take away our identity,
Mm-hmm.
abuse, shame, or kill the Indian out of us and make us just like the average Canadian, right? Like that's what all the propaganda and documentation of residential school says is they wanted
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that there'd be no Indian today. No Indian,
Mm-hmm.
no Indian, no, So I was like, no. And the fact that there is still my people, so many of us hold on to this knowledge is extremely incredible given what we were up against. So I found all these amazing elders and traditional healers, and I said, we got to bring these ceremonies back. I need the ceremonies. I grew up, very Christian, but also very much on the land. My dad is a man
Mm-hmm.
of the earth. My mom is a woman of prayer, and they brought me on the land, and there was a spirituality that I was living in that I didn't really quite piece together until I was later. I was very Christian, and I could connect with some of those Christian values, but also knew the damage the church has done, not to my people and so many people across the
Mm-hmm.
world.
Mm-hmm.
So as I connected with these healers and I said, we need to bring those ceremonies, and I need my ceremonies too. I want to know what my rites of passage is. When I started that journey, they said, well, Jenny, actually, you're meant for this work. You're
Mm-hmm.
to be doing this work too. And that
Mm-hmm.
was just the game changer for me because all of a sudden, the veil was uplifted, and I was now living the Indigenous way, which is that you're a spiritual being first and foremost, here to
Mm-hmm.
have a human experience. And
Mm-hmm.
suddenly, all that remembering of when I was little was coming back to me, that yeah, the earth is alive, not just these
Mm.
beings that we call trees and everything else, but sentient spiritual beings, every single thing. And once you start to immerse yourself in that world and realize, the journey that your spirit's on here to evolve through it, it is extremely humbling. And the game changer for me was, okay, if I'm starting to now understand that everything is spirit, then I'm also starting to realize energy. And
Jenny,
that, yeah.
if I could just track,
Yeah.
because you speak about these ideas of spirit and generational trauma and healing and war with such confidence, and I wonder if you might know that whilst this is really known to us, many people in the world have no knowledge and experience or understanding of what this is. So just to
Yeah.
reflect and make sure that I understand and that we have a perspective for people who are listening. When you talk about a war and almost a genocide, which is what I was reading about yesterday, there is a there are many individual traumas to body, to spirit, to nature that colonial powers have inflicted on Indigenous people as individuals, as smaller groups of people, but a whole nation, and the spirit of the whole Indigenous people across Turtle Island. But there is almost a feeling that people are separated from their bodies, from spirit, from the earth, where in fact what you're saying and the underlying tale of what you're saying is that we as human beings are a whole person that fits into nature in that way. So you're speaking about, can you make a little bit more explicit
Yeah.
how what this healing entails? What is healing of this kind of healing that you're doing? How is it seen in your healing tradition, if not just the Moose Cree Nation, but across Indigenous communities and groups on Turtle Island? How is the body related to the spirit, related to the earth, related to others? And what does an infliction or an injury mean? And how do people heal? That's a big question, but I think you will answer
Oh,
it.
it's
Can you
so
make it more
important.
clear?
Yeah. So let's start. The attack on us was to try to break the two most sacred bonds that we can have, right? And that was from mother to child, parents to child, community to child, right? My Western brain says attachment. My Indigenous
Mm-hmm,
brain says connection. So it was trying to sever
mm-hmm,
that. And
mm-hmm,
then it was trying to sever our spiritual connection to the land with whom we call mama. So we've
mm-hmm,
all been living in the illusion of separation from her because
mm-hmm,
we are earth. We are to
mm-hmm,
be one with nature in the cyclical
mm-hmm,
wisdom that is in nature. So there's
mm-hmm.
that spiritual component, the
So is
energy,
it
the
the same?
physical.
Is it the same as, or would it be similar to, say, for instance, what South American nations called Pachamama, or what is called in India Bhuma Devi, which is
Yeah.
the earth as mother, so that without that connection and the separation of people from the earth, you literally starve them in not just of food, but many, just you starve them.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time with the Grandmothers Council. So the Indigenous Grandmothers Council, they were put together 22, 23 years ago. There was 13 of them across the world.
Mm-hmm.
I've been adopted by one, my Kokum, Grandmother Red Spider Woman. She's a Arapaho Cheyenne. So I've been spending time down. They gather sometimes in New Mexico, where Grandmother Flor de Mayo is, and some of the other grandmothers. And now, the council has is no longer like, we've lost many to the spirit world, and they haven't passed
Mm-hmm.
that down. It stops with them, but they do share their teachings and work with other wisdom keepers. And
Mm-hmm.
so many of these other wisdom keepers are non-Indigenous. And what I'm hearing
Mm-hmm.
from both the Indigenous grandmothers and the non-Indigenous is the same thing. We all come from, in our pagan roots, cultures and a spirituality that honors your relationship with the earth as your mama,
Mm-hmm.
and is about ceremonies that keep you in connection with the land and the spirits of the land.
Mm-hmm.
So the physical side of that is that our bodies, our
Mm-hmm.
physiology is we're bioelectrical beings, and we've
Mm-hmm.
pulled ourselves away from the energy of the land.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the land is covered with these ions, these negatively charged electrons that we need to
Mm-hmm.
keep charged, keep healthy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the sad part of that is we don't have the ability to receive or release the heaviness we carry.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much heaviness because collectively we are a pain avoidant society. And
Mm-hmm.
we've lost the art of mourning. So Indigenous ceremonies are all about your humility and going into your pain and grieving your sacred tears and releasing that heaviness that we're not meant to carry for long. We're here to learn
Really
from
performing
those.
that grief, really
Yes,
performing it and immersing in
yes.
it.
A being in it. Like we
Yeah.
pull ourselves away from grief,
Yeah.
sorry, we shut it down, we numb it, we
Yeah.
avoid it, we
Yeah.
deny it, we repress. And people come
Yeah.
to me and say, I don't
Yeah.
want to go there. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you live there. Just
Yeah.
it's not in your conscious awareness
Yeah.
right now, right? And so the
And
physical
when you
part
do
of it,
that, you're living there alone. When you don't want to go, you have to take people with you to that grief so that they can bring you back from it.
that's right. And I think my job is that I hold space for that grief, you know? And it's more than just holding space, but I think that's where we all need to start because I think a lot of us try to distract people away from that process, right?
Yeah.
Oh, let's go
Yeah.
shopping. Let's go do something make you feel better
Mm-hmm.
without honoring that you need
Mm-hmm.
to balance both, you know, that heavy part of who you are and your experience here, which is one of suffering none of us are immune to. But then
Mm-hmm.
we learn through that experience the depths of love and joy and triumph and everything else. That's the yin yang, that's the shadow work, the higher
Mm-hmm.
calling that we're supposed to be embracing. And so as Indigenous people, we're very humble people that really ensure that we're in those ceremonies to balance it out and come into understanding of why we chose this lifetime and why we chose to come here and go and navigate those challenges. So the
So we
physical
learn
body,
that. We learn that by, you're saying we learn that by connecting with nature and the actual physiological and physical processes of being in connection with nature. But we also learn it through our relationship with our ancestral lines, not necessarily ones that are genetically related to us, but ones that are communally related to us. Literally, what science has recently discovered as the maternal or mitochondrial DNA. So when we go back to our grandmothers, when we go back to our abuelas or whatever, there's a whole church dedicated to grandmothers in Cuba.
mm,
And in the province that I come from in South Africa, grandmothers are really important. They're called gogos. And so there's that grandmothering community. So you relate to the nature and the physical chemistry and biology and physicality of the earth, but you also relate to the relationality of your literal maternal line.
yes,
That's what you're saying. And that
yes.
what brings about the healing.
Absolutely. So when you're connected to the earth and to so there's the physical thing we're talking about, right? Of that
Yes.
energetic connection in your
Yes.
bioelectrical being, right? That
Mm-hmm.
energy is now grounding. And it brings you
Mm-hmm.
out of beta brain waves and into theta state,
Mm-hmm.
which brings you out of mind into heart and into spirit. And we breathe
Mm-hmm.
more deeply and we get into what I put my clients through, which is trance. Getting out of here and getting into here. That's what the grandmothers say the war is between mind and heart, and we're to get more heart centered.
Mm-hmm.
We're to practice embodiment and get into our body. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, we are matriarchal communities. The grandmothers, the women, they're the backbone of the communities, the emotional ones, the ones that bring spirit, earth side through our waters, through our womb.
Mm-hmm.
So being on the land, you're now in the perfect space to understand your intuition, your divine knowing, and connect to your ancestors, connect to that blood memory that you hold, but also the energy that connects you to what is beyond the veil. And so a lot of our
Mm-hmm.
ceremonies catapult us from the earth and into the stars, into the place we
Mm-hmm.
come from,
Mm-hmm.
source, where we all go back to. And so I've been really feeling this a lot lately as a woman because we're the water carriers, the water protectors. And water is something that moves through all of us in the land, right? And holds memory of the land and the people of the land, the animals of the land, the plants of the lands, the earth. And for me as Redstone Snake Woman, I've been really trying to feel this through as snake. She embodies sacred feminine energy. And also the stones, those relations have been here since the earth was created. So they have that ancient knowledge that we can into if we spend more time on the land. So and now I'm starting to go into perimenopause. So I'll probably go through hot flashes throughout this Zoom meeting. But I'm moving from one phase of motherhood, which like I'm not a grandmother anytime soon. My eldest is 14, but into what moves us into that next phase, which is the wise woman, right? Which is where we uphold our grandmothers. And so
Yes.
this is something that is just across this globe and something that all of us have a way of relating to and understanding through our faiths. But I believe we all are headed into the same direction if we stay in those ceremonies and those practices that tie us to the earth. So the bigger piece that I just want to talk about the healing and what I've learned about us as Indigenous people with the ancient doctrine is when you keep yourself removed from the land and you keep yourself avoidant from pain, we develop what I would call emotional energetic blockages in the body. The medical field calls this chronic inflammation. And over time, that inflammation, that heavy negative energy becomes disease, becomes injury, becomes mental health issues. So because we're not releasing, because we don't realize we need the earth and her energy, we stay indoors a lot, we wear rubber synthetic soled shoes that prevent energy transfer, we are literally cutting ourselves off from that exchange we need. And we're not in the ceremonies that help us, as we've mentioned, be in the grief work and the importance of that grief work. And so what I find with my clients and what I learned with myself through work with the medicine people that trained me is I was holding so much in my body, some from this lifetime, some through epigenetics and the intergenerational trauma and stuff beyond, which I would say past life and even more that I was holding. And so my clients come to me to help me find those inflamed spots, the parts that are held in their body, to release that energy, which we have many different types of ceremonies to help do.
And this is a very human thing. It happens across Indigenous traditional cultures throughout the world. This is what I've been hearing from other Indigenous and traditional healers that I've spoken to from different parts of the world. It sounds like it's a very human thing, that it is necessary for us to maintain our humanity, to connect with the world, to connect with our community, to acknowledge our pain, to remain connected to the land. This is what healing is about. So we have to constantly heal as we're doing this. And if we hold it, it passes on to the next generation. And this knowledge is transmitted through relationality, usually with the land as mother, but then also groups and communities of mothers and grandmothers. And we are initiated into this community by our changing bodies. And as you just mentioned now, you've been through pregnancy, so have I. You've been a mother of young children, and all of this, and now going into perimenopause. All of this signals to your body that you are, to yourself and your body and perhaps other people in your environment, that you are getting ready to enter another stage of holding and sharing knowledge for not just yourself but your community. So some of what is constructed as symptomatic in Western culture is actually the signaling of your own body that tells you that you're getting ready to become a gogo, which is grandmother, an abuela, a mother that is more connected to the earth and has new responsibilities of sharing that knowledge. As a mental health practitioner, as a community practitioner, you've already had opportunity to do that. But all women, presumably, are meant to do that, and men are meant to do different things, and two-spirit people are meant to do different things in this way.
Yes.
Do I understand that correctly?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was just on another podcast earlier, and my friend is Two-Spirit, and she was not a mom, so she's speaking to wanted a few of us mothers to speak to how we decolonize the motherhood here. And yeah, there's a power in the matriarchy, and there's a specific power that women bring as the life givers, and there's definitely a power that the men bring as protectors and providers, and that the Two-Spirit bring as well, all to be honored. And so it's getting back, yes, to that relationship that we have with the earth, but also the sun that brings grandfather sun that brings such power and energy to the planet, and grandmother moon who pushes us into our intuitive knowing and works with our water. So we're in a full moon. We have a full moon ceremony tonight that I provide for the Ontario Native Women's Association, and all she asks us to release, to feel and release, right? And then the new moon, you can start to think about what do you want to bring into your life and into your family's life. So that relationality that you speak of is so key because it keeps us living for community. And I think most people I think, when I look at colonialism and what it's done, it's really pushed people into a way of living that treats each other as strangers and bystanders. And we're not living for kinship, because when you do, and this is why Indigenous people refer to each other as brothers and sisters, you treat each other better. You think in more loving terms. And the big thing as you speak to humanity is we've really lost how we should be connecting to each other as fellow humans and spirits here to evolve. We have to bring that humanity back and start being less judgmental and more compassionate to each other about the journeys that we're to have here. So that healing that we need to tap into is really about opening that heart space to that connection, because yes, there's the healing that we do and how that helps each other through the genetic lines. But there is a sacred web in which we're all connected. And so these times my elders call mending the sacred hoop. We are all one here within the sacred hoop, and that eternal web of life in which we're all connected. So we're trying to reweave it in a better way. So everything that I do will impact everybody else. I'm a fractal of the whole, right? And so I loved knowing that as a mom, because I'm thinking, okay, I birthed my three sons, and I did a lot of healing work on that journey to ensure I'm not passing on trauma that I don't want to pass on. But nurture means way more than we realize. It actually can connect to those genetic lines too. That's the power of energy. So I'm always telling people, like, what you do as you heal now still impacts your children, still impacts the ancestors and the generations before you, because like for us, there's the time is not linear. It is cyclical in nature, and so is the dimensions and the interdimensions of our existence here as spiritual energetic beings. So it's
And
fascinating to think of.
it is fascinating to think of, and even as you say that, I'm listening to how you're describing caring. It is lateral and vertical. It is, as you say, cyclical. So that when you talk about mothering, you're not just talking about mothering your own children. You're talking about enacting motherhood in your space, because you're literally caring for future versions of yourself and the people that you care about. In African culture, in South Africa, where I come from, there's a phrase called Muntu Gumuntu Gabantu. It means a person is a person because of people. And the concept that you're talking about is called Ubuntu, that we exist literally because of others.
Yeah.
It's the same in my ancestral culture in India, where we, and this is long ago in my ancestry, which is a collective consciousness that we're all part of a whole and that we exist in transition. And what we do here impacts on our future existence and how we will come back to this lifetime. That if we don't give full and wholeheartedly, we will be called back to give in that way again. So that even if you come across someone, when you heal someone else and when you're genuinely kind, not just performatively kind, you are looking after yourself. You're not being kind for the sake of the other person. And I think that's what you're saying, that when we walk through life, caring and being cared for and caring outside ourselves in a cyclical way, we're really looking after our own experience of this life and future lives and for the people we care for. I'm always struck by when I have worked with Indigenous people and Indigenous communities and in my own culture, how mothering is communal, that you're allowed to care for and feed, and you're expected to other people's children, and it's expected. Whereas more and more in Western cultures, you're expected to not interfere with other children, and if you are judged for it. But in fact, we're depriving our children of multiple mothers. I'm just thinking about then in the residential school area, it was really a violence in a most profound and deep way when children were taken away. And I'm actually losing my breath and my voice when I say this, because it was such a profoundly violent way of not just separating individual children from their mothers, but separating people from who they were. It's I think people recognize the kind of violence that it is from their perspective, but it goes way deeper than that, doesn't it?
It goes so deep, and this is a soul wound that I've worked on for so long, because most people do not understand the extents of this, and many don't want to understand. You know, today we're dealing with denialists, right?
Yeah.
And when I realized it, it was like an energetic knife to an already broken heart. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, this goes so deep. To think of this happening to my own babies just would bring me to my knees. And the thing that, you know, and people don't realize how long, like we're going back, if you want to talk about schools, 1600s, but we're always talking about the federal schools. And this is what I struggle with, you know, as an academic researcher who loves numbers. We will never have them. But those ones, you know, 1828 to 1996. And we don't know how many children actually went because of documentation not kept well or destroyed, which we know has happened, right? And then we're not even talking about day schools, which went into the 2000s, another 200,000 plus children.
Yeah.
And it's just the what I've heard survivors share with me is ritualized abuse, with sadism. We know there was pedophiles. So we're talking about abuse on all levels to just destroy, shame children to not want to be Indigenous anymore. And just to create a hatred towards their spirituality was the goal. Their people, their spirituality. So a land grab, right? So you know, this federating country, you know, could do with the land what it wanted to do. And so what it's done to all of us, and we all have to look at this when we really, you know, what do I need to reconcile within? You know, where do I hold on to racism or different ways of being that I should be changing? Is we all live on the land as a resource instead of the source of life. And that, why decolonization is so hard, is because people don't surrender to that and to asking, what do I need to stop doing? What do I need to give back? What do I have to stop taking? What do I need to do differently?
Yeah.
And that's uncomfortable. And going inward and realize how deep that goes. And when you realize, oh my gosh, I am living so out of alignment to how I should be living here, that is a wake up that most people don't want. Even I was struggling to shift and go, can I put the blinders back on? Like I was doing okay. I was a good person. I was doing okay. And then you realize.
But Jenny, maybe that's the biggest victory of colonization, that it keeps that fear of what do we do? Who are we? It takes away who we are from us in such a great way that even if we want to leave it, we don't know where to go back to. We inhabit the colonizer, or the colonizer inhabits us in such a way that when we want to leave, we don't know where to go. And the thought of leaving the colonial identity that we inhabit, how we learn, how we eat, how we speak, what identity we have is so profound. And also because it's happened globally, there's a kind of network, you know, it's happened I'm thinking of the book Rabbit Proof Fence, which talks about residential schools in Australia and how it mimics the story of what happened in Canada at the same time, but way on the other end of the world, done in the same way. I remember reading a poem by a Jamaican poet who was poet laureate of Jamaica, Olive Senior, and she wrote about her colonial day school in Jamaica and how the same kind of violence happened in this colonial day school, where her language was taken away from her. She was made to feel less than human because she didn't emulate the colonizers. Just reminded me of my own mom and her sisters. They went to a Christian day school and were made to feel ashamed of their language and their religion and how they looked and how they dressed. So this was pervasive across the world. And in doing this, the colonizers not only separated Indigenous people who still had connection with the land and ancestral lines, but also themselves from what it meant to be human. And the more they separated themselves, the more violent they were able to be, and the more they destroyed the fabric of humanity.
Yeah. When you live in that separation, it's easy to get lost. And then there's been this cycle of hurt and dominance, right? So, when we look at colonization, it's all about oppressing the feminine, domination over the feminine, the land and the women who so these times are about women coming into their power and men coming into their hearts. And that fear that you're speaking to, that's why it's like the great squeeze as humanity goes through this rebirth, which I will remain in faith that we can, birth into that golden age. That rebirth, that painful process that women go through with giving birth and that babies go through becoming that canal is what we're in. And the fear is now so intensified as the colonial powers to be try to hang on to what is. And the rest of us rise and say, no more. We can no longer live the way we've been living. And so we have so many prophecies around the world that speak to this. For the Anishinaabe, we speak to the 8th fire. So we're in the 7th fire, and we want to light that last 8th eternal fire, which is we go down the right road, because right now we're at that crossroads. And so people come to me all the time like apocalypse or golden age. I said the work's the same. You have to choose love over fear. You have to choose unity over divide. And anything that's in the way of preventing you from doing that is where your healing work is. And that's what these times speak to, is as we go through that squeeze, what's coming up needs to come out too, so we can really address just how far off the path we are and do the healing work and the peace work to bring us back together and all live across the world in a way that ensures world peace and global healing and the harmony that we all deserve.
So there's lots of hope. And you mentioned that the colonial origins come from oppressing women, and I'm sure you know this, but the colonial powers honed their violence in the witch trials, which started with oppressing and killing women in where the colonizers were first started. And then just transferred these skills of oppressing what is sacred to themselves and what made them human to other parts of the world to dominate people who were still in connection with the land. And did it both literally by ripping children away from their mothers, but also did it in many other ways by ripping people away from their lands and pushing them away from where they could connect and how they knew how to be human. What does your healing tradition say about how and why we can have hope? And what is the cosmology of spirit that tells us when we can have hope? How do we go forward as human beings to enact that hope, to activate it, to connect with it?
Thank you for asking that. Elder Renee Hill had said to me the other day, you're bringing hope that's helping our people evolve. And it was really important for me to have that said to me from her, my elders. I look up to my elders so much because I realized that so many of us feel hopeless. And I was seeing this a lot in Indigenous youth, right? Because we've been
Mhm.
suffering from broken hearts in a world that misunderstands us and then doesn't
Mhm.
support us. And
Mhm.
suicide was one of the number one reasons a lot of our youth and our young people die.
Mhm.
And so we want people to have that hope. And even more than hope, I say faith because it feels more like a knowing, right? Where hope's still a
Mhm.
question. I want to get us in
Yeah.
rooted in faith. And you're
Yeah.
rooted in faith when you're on the land because she brings you again back to that place.
Yeah.
When we breathe deeper in our sacred breath where it can come back to spirit. And it was Elder Clayton Chichu from my community who shared this. He says, our Cree word for that is Iagamsi, where you get back into that feeling here that connects you to the ancestors, the cosmology that you say, the great mystery,
Mhm.
where all spirits come from and go back to. You connect back to them. And they guide you. So all of our ceremonies, when we sit in that place of prayer and connect with our ancestors and the spirits and the spirit world, you get the support you're needed on this during this time on earth, right? And we
Mhm.
have to get back to speaking with them, communion, being in communion with them, connecting to Creator, the higher power, whatever you want to call it. Whatever brings you to that place of faith and
Mhm.
that time of
Mhm.
ceremony is the key.
Mhm.
Stay and hope because you remember you're here for a reason. You know, things happen for us, not to us while we're here. It's all about being good
Mhm.
students of life, good students as humans, so that our spirits evolve. And that's the bigger picture. And so, you know, we have to pick up our spiritual tools again and get back into these ceremonies. So for my people, it starts the moment you wake up. That sunrise, you are here, grandfather, son. Thank you. I get to live another day because you're here to give energy and life to the planet. So we
Mhm.
thank the sun, we thank the earth, we thank the spirits, we thank all and start our day in a place of gratitude. And that keeps you rooted in faith and gives you the hope, you know, that every day is their chance of rebirth. Nature shows us that. The earth shows us
Mhm.
the infinite possibilities. You know, she is amazing when you immerse yourself in nature. And that's why I was there all day yesterday and on our back property because we created a healing forest here and we have our sweat lodge here and we have our sacred fire
Mhm.
here. And we're constantly in that place of allowing ourselves the rebirth that every day, that every spring season brings you. And I think that's why we've really lost ourselves is we don't go through those death and rebirth cycles like we need to. We've got to let go
Mhm.
of old versions of us, yet we hang so tightly onto parts of us that just need to die, crumble,
Mhm.
so we can grow
Mhm.
something new and we can grow into better versions of us. So all of our ceremonies, I'm a pipe carrier. So that morning sunrise ceremony is to be in with the pipe, praying to Creator, praying to um, the ancestors that are out there, tapping into that oneness that is us. And that place, Yagamni says, we are equal. We are equal to all. We were made to feel
Mhm.
inferior through the abuses of colonialism was you are to be inferior. And that is something I had to work hard on healing. I'm worthy. I'm just as worthy as everyone else. And so my job, that mothering we talked to, the mama bear in me is saying everything is worthy. So I'm
Mhm.
speaking, I'm working hard on behalf of the future generations, but also my elders and the ancestors, but also the land and the trees on
Mhm.
my property and the plants and the animals and the water. We pray for
Mhm.
the water and the spirit of water. Water is life, and I'm worrying so much about our water lately, especially, you know, with AI and data centers and all the different things going on in the world. I'm like, we gotta balance out, you know, nature and tech. And so a lot of our ceremonies are about how do we stay balanced? How do we stay aligned? You know, so we're spiritual beings, but we're also physical, emotional, mental beings. And you gotta think of all of them if you want to be well here.
So let me see if I can map what you're saying. You talked about some very, very important concepts that are obviously so connected to who you are that you just flow through them and in and around them and connect with them. But if I reflect on what you're saying, you said this connection starts really early in the morning. It starts with waking up and where you say hello to grandfather son. That just resonated so well with me because it reminded me of Surya Namaskar, which people think is just yoga. It's sun salutation, right, in yoga, but it actually is exactly what is the Hindu ancestral tradition of greeting the sun. And I remember waking up to my, when I was very little, waking up to my grandmother doing the Surya Namaskar to say good morning to the sun for me and my whole family to be drawn into this. So observing elders do this, whether they're very old or you an elder in your space, observing how they value the sun and the moon and water and how they connect with it is one of the things that we can do and really align and connect with that. The other thing we can do is realizing that while hope is valuable, what we need to move away from, what we are called to move away from at this time, before we can move to a space of the eighth fire or the opening, is move from intention or goal and purpose, which Western life is really set on, towards hope, where we can heal ourselves from suicide. And the suicide of adolescence is not a symptom of mental illness in that child. It is a bell of warning through the whole group to which that little vulnerable being belongs. So moving not just from hope, but then to faith, to giving and offering through our ceremonies, our children to the world, the ceremonies, and showing the nation, the spirit, the ancestry. This is who our children are, and letting our children see themselves and putting them almost on that river of life through those ceremonies. We have to pull in faith, and we have the moon and fire and water and the sun to shine and guide us. We have our grandmothers to remind us to greet these beings, and we have nature all around us to touch and to feel and to be with, to draw us from intention to hope, to faith. That's what you're saying?
Yes, yes. Like the land, we create ceremonial places on the land to help us, create the energetic space too needed to amplify our prayers and really connect to the divinity and the energy of the powers to be in the great mystery that we call it. And it's a feeling you have, when you connect to it. It's a feeling of knowing, oh, hi, I remember you. I feel like a lot of what's happened to us was to keep us numb from our divinity, and that we can, all of us, through prayer and intention, connect to what's beyond. And many of us just lost that practice through all of this, right? And so as we talk, we're coming into summer solstice this month on June 21st, and the sun is in the sky the longest. It is the most powerful day for prayer. So we go to our ceremonial sites, and Chief Arvo Looking Horse, if you're not familiar with him, he's one of my favorite spiritual leaders of the Sioux, Dakota Nakota Nation, and he designated summer solstice, June 21st, also World Peace and Prayer Day. And he says to everybody, please, all of you, no matter where you are, go to your ceremonial site. If that's just on your mat with the candle, perfect. But be in your prayer, connect to us as we all pray, because he says, and I believe it, even what science says is irreversible. Prayer, energy can change things. I've seen the miracles of it. Even in my own healing, I had tumors in my knee that me and my medicine man broke down from, are you familiar with Misiwe Moto's work with water and
No.
prayers to water? So water with good messages, prayers, when frozen, crystallize into snowflakes. And when they're given negative energy and negative, like spoken to negatively and everything else, they make distorted images. Well, I had some tumors in my knee that are benign, thankfully. And the surgeon who went to go pull them out said, normally we see, 2 to 3 mushroom-shaped tumors. You had hundreds of tinier ones that were snowflakes. And I said, well, I've been working on this, trying to break them down and show myself love, show myself forgiveness, show that, how I've been hurt, the people that I felt have hurt me, show them forgiveness. And we worked a lot with changing the energy into something that was negative to something that was more beautiful. And it was turning into all these snowflakes. And he's like, I've never seen that before. I'm like, well, I have a theory. But it's just, there's miracles, and I want people to understand the magic and mystery of what this universe is. And so many people, especially Indigenous people and everyone else that's been colonized and taught to think horribly of yourself and your place within the world, we live in a lot of fear and think that the afterlife is punitive, So we got to help people come back to this place of understanding that, source, that the place that we'll go back to is so beautiful and compassionate and loving, and anything that pulls us away from feeling those things is the illusion of our humanness. We live according to the limitations we put ourselves in, and we have to learn to see beyond that. And I think, this is a time of matriarchy rising, and I think a lot of people are coming back to reclaiming that power, about ourselves, and it's a powerful time to be in. But I always say to the students and kids and children I work with, this is why I'm telling them the land. She's there, right there, our wisest healer, our oldest teacher, right there, ready to hold space for you to go through the turbulence that is these times. But and also to know the power of their breath work and calming the nervous system and how they can rewire their brain and positive affirmations, all these things. But so our ceremonies are that place to go to let out the fear, let out the grief, let out the frustrations, let out all the disappointments, all the things that keep us from really being able to step forward into, I got this, it will be okay. I was meant to be here. This is all happening according to plan, and then we get that faith that you and I have been speaking to. And when I just close my eyes and get to that place, like it's a feeling, and I don't even need words to describe it. I just say I trust, and trust is the biggest thing, because when we go back to the beginning of children being pulled away, that disorganized attachment. So my thesis that I actually stopped in at my MSW, my thesis was intergenerational insecure attachments in First Nations families. And I stopped because I was going through my own trauma. We had lost a family member to suicide those couple of years, and I just wanted to get it and get done. But I wish I did my PhD, but I'm writing about it in a book, and that is the intergenerational insecure attachment patterns, that happen between parents and their children, and generations of it, the mistrust that creates for us as Indigenous people. And then we've all done 500 plus years of betrayal. There's also mistrust. I feel like all of us are suffering from this insecure attachment, to the land. We don't recognize that she is what we need. We don't recognize that we need to be connected, because when we do, we have that sense of belonging that we're actually all searching for. When we feel lonely, it's because we're not on the land, we're not in the heart space, we're not in the spirit that connects us to all, right? So when my elder said, Clayton said, when you're that place, you feel equal to all, you feel supported, you feel grateful. You tap into that oneness. And when you're there, you're okay. Despite the human stuff happening you feel okay.
And you say it's something that you just know, and it's related to faith. So I really am drawn to the idea, and this resonates so well across what it means to be human is the mystery. And in Western culture, when you hear mystery, the next thing you people think of is, how do we solve it? But in fact, what you're saying is that in the mystery, there is comfort to know that there are bigger things than you. So the unknowable, and I mentioned in my introduction how, and this is across all sorts of Indigenous and traditional cultures and ancient cultures, that there are certain things that we're not meant to know with our intentional conscious minds, because when they get into our intentional conscious minds, they leave us. Because it's way more scary being a mother than to be mothered, to be taken care of. And so when we have faith, when we just know that there's something greater taking care of us, we can be at peace and just know and be human. So this is what mystery is asking us, or the unknowable, or the powerful being, or the great spirit, or whatever we call it in our cultures. It's asking us to rest and be children of the land and be children of the spirit, right? It's not, here's a mystery, solve it. Here's, figure out what God is, figure out how everything works. Sometimes the unknowing is the power.
Yeah. And it's humbling, right? So what I always say to people, like we have grandfather teachings as Indigenous people, which are the values that help us live a good way. And
Mhm,
first for me is that humility. And I go humility versus pride. Okay. So what you're saying is that knowing, wanting to know, it almost becomes more of an egoic thing, right? Can keep us
absolutely,
private.
yes.
I need to know. I need to have control. I'm like,
Hmm.
you're talking about the mothering and how hard that is. Because as a mother, you want to have some sense of control to help ensure your kids have everything they need, that things go the
Hmm.
way as best they can, right? And for me, it was a real humbling to release that control and trust in the surrendering and the death process more.
Hmm.
That didn't go the way I thought it should. Okay, I'm
Hmm.
disappointed, I'm upset, but it went the way that it was supposed to because
Hmm.
it happened that way. And I'm going to
Hmm.
trust how things go, right? And so it's a hard one for people, especially when there's loss and, we get victimized and there's horrible things that happen to us. And so it's really about, again, that grief work that helps us with that part so we can stay in the humbling and the learning process and realize there's no control. At best, we're in collaboration with life and that ebb and flow, right? So for me, it's always, I don't need to know. I can trust. I could trust. I know I chose to be here. I've been taught by my elders that our souls choose, our parents, our life plans, we forget as we
Hmm.
come earthside. And
Hmm.
the task is a remembering of who you are and what your purpose is here.
Hmm.
And being in that place of remembering is to me is just that place of trust and faith as you're speaking to. I don't need to know exactly where I'm going. I trust that I will get there and that all of
Hmm.
these things happening to me are preparing me for when I finally make it home. In the meantime, I make home here. And I'm a mama bear. I want people to feel at home here too, the lodge that I hold. I want it to be a sacred and safe place for people to be who they're meant to be because a lot of the healing is about unbecoming everything we thought we needed to become to survive this world. And a lot of us just live in that limbic survival mode when we want people to remember who they really are so they can, feed their soul what they need, provide the soul care that they really need so they can be in thrival mode, right? So we can really
Hmm.
live to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be. And,
And
it's
what you're talking about um, is a sense of feeling peace and calm, which really is really not having stress encompass your life, which is what we're aiming for all the time in Western culture, not to be stressed, to have our bodies inflamed. And
Mhm.
I didn't ask the question, but you've explained it with before I could even ask it about how you get to that peaceful state of healing, not just your mind and those around you, but keeping your body in that peaceful state, which doesn't induce illness. And even if it does, you can connect with some other elder like you did with your medicine
Mhm.
man to
Mhm.
connect with their peace and release that healing. You've been so generous with your time and your knowledge and your reflections and led us through a journey of through what is sacred to you and your people. And we've taken a kind of an imaginary journey through your land. I can, in my mind's eye, see where you come from and see the people that have been with you on your journey. And to ask you one final question, I've spoken to other healers and not just on this podcast, many times over many years. There's a lineal kind of knowledge that comes with what you do. It wasn't by chance that you chose psychology. It wasn't by
Mhm.
chance that
Mhm.
you chose being a social worker and that you find your way. And earlier in our conversation, you said that elders in your community said you were meant to be here. And I think you were not
Yeah.
just saying you were meant to be here in your space in what is known as Canada now, but also that you are meant to be and do the work that you're doing, and that it is lineal, not just in your horizontal line, but in the spiritual journey that you've chosen. Does that make sense to you? Does that
Oh
resonate?
gosh. Oh gosh, yeah. All the ceremonies that I've done. Okay, so being in connected to spirit have taught me and showed me the pathway forward, you know. And my great grandfather was a Midowin of the Star Lodge that I didn't know because he didn't share that. There was a lot of unspoken stuff, obviously,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
we know why. It wasn't until I connected with an uncle, my dad's cousin, that I was able to connect that. And I had already received from another grandmother um, the knowledge that when she awakened my pipe, I would work with the star people. And I had already started working with people, and I would hold a star lodge here. And that came together without me even knowing that was in my lineage, you know? And it was through all these ceremonies that I've done with medicine people that I came to understand a little bit more and more about who I am and why I'm here and what I'm to do. And the things that I've seen through ceremony and experienced through ceremony, there's no explaining it other than intuitive knowing and spiritual guidance, right? And it was hard for me to share that initially about my journey because people were looking at me like, all right. And then now we're talking about spirits and ghosts and all these other things that I experienced. So, it was a little bit turbulent during that time, but wow, did it crack me open so I could really start receiving the information that I needed to receive. And so we have a star lodge here. We have a sweat lodge ceremony, which is a really beautiful ceremony for rebirth, to go in and cry and sweat out, everything we need to be rebirthed, coming back out of the womb of Mother Earth, as someone new that can leave all that behind and begin
Mm-hmm.
to move forward in a better way. So it's interesting, the path. And yeah, that's actually what I've been starting to write about, because as a speaker, I share all my experiences of how I've come to learn things that I've had, and try to kind of, inspire other people to begin the journey of their spiritual healing work, so they too can get the answers that they need and start to see the future that they should envision for themselves, right? So, and another part of that, when we talk about the grandfather teachings, which for me is honesty, is getting back into honest relationship with self, the land, and our bodies, our sacred vessels, that we only get one to have this spiritual journey with, and that gets us back into exercise and movement and to song. The podcast Healing Songs. It wasn't until I picked up my drum and really started finding my songs and my voice and my breath, and oh my gosh, it was the most healing part of who I am, is the fact that I now drum and sing for people,
Mm-hmm.
and those songs connect me to my ancestors, and those frequencies and vibrations heal my body and resonate out and heal, other people around me. Have been so healing for my kids, when we drum and sing together. And so it's the web. When I tell people about it, I said it's a web. Think about it as a web, and how things connect us to past, to future, to here, to each other, to above, to below, to beyond. All of it is connecting us back to that place within. So the journey, it's no longer so much looking to go from A to B, but to come inward and into your wholeness and into tapping into that DNA, because our grandmothers knew how to do this, their grandmothers knew how to do this, and we're connected to all of that, So it's a beautiful process of remembering and reverence.
It's a journey. So if people are feeling intimidated or don't know where to start, I think for me it is comforting to know that it is a journey. And on that note, I want to say I can't express how grateful I am to hear you, and for you to speak with such passion about your journey and your personal journey to connecting with ancestral knowledge and the practice, but also sharing the journey of a people, not just your people, but a human experience. So, it's just wonderful. So, Jenny Sawanohk, thank you so very much for your knowledge and your generosity and your heart and your faith in sharing all of this. I will take this knowledge with me and share it, and I hope that everyone that listens to you finds some nugget that helps them connect with their people and the land and humanity and spirit. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. It's been such an honor.